Well, good morning, fifth grade. It's a beautiful day. Welcome back from spring break. I hope you had a good one. We stayed home and got a lot of things organized and cleaned. We did a lot of baking and hiking and being outside and reading. I got a lot of reading done. So yeah, I hope you had a good time, and we're going to dive right back into math. I hope you had a chance to practice some of your math over spring break and especially yesterday. Okay, so today we're going to start on page 426, and it's about fractions and decimals. Okay, so today we're going to talk a little bit about place value and how fractions can be written as decimals. Okay, fractions and decimals are both part of a whole number. Okay, so a fraction can be written as a decimal. Today we're going to talk about decimals that are even, that are part of place value, which is tenths, hundredths, thousandths, 10,000ths. Do you hear anything at the end of all of those numbers? Yes. Okay, so in a decimal, when you have place value in a decimal, you're going to hear at the end of it. That means that it is part of a whole number. Let me show you on here. If you remember in our classroom way back then, I had a place value chart on the wall, and it had whole numbers, ones, tens, hundreds, thousands, 10,000s, 100,000s, etc. And then it also had decimals. Okay, so this little dot right here is called a decimal point. Okay, anything to the left of the decimal point is a whole number. Anything to the right of a decimal point is part of a number. Okay, so when you read a whole number and a decimal, you're going to say and when you see the decimal point. Okay, so this would be 1 and 325 10,000ths. Okay, so let me show you how I read that and how I know what that place value is. Okay, so when we're doing place value on a decimal, we start with tenths. There is no such thing as oneths. Okay, because if you were to divide a number by 1, it's going to be the same number. Okay, so the first decimal place, the first place value of a decimal is the tenths place. Okay, so this is how many times a whole number is divided into 10. Okay, the next one is hundredths. Okay, that's how many times the decimal is divided in, the number is divided into hundreds. Okay, the next one is thousandths. Okay, and that's how many times the whole number was divided into 1,000 pieces. Okay, and then this one right here, this is as far as we're going to go for today, is 10,000ths. Okay, and that's how many times the whole number was divided into 10,000 pieces. Okay, so when you're going to the left of the decimal and you're doing whole numbers, the numbers are getting bigger every single time you go to a different place value. Okay, because this is times 1, times 10, times 100, times 1,000, times 10,000. This is divided by. So the numbers are getting smaller, even though 10,000ths sounds bigger than tenths. It just means that it's broken into more pieces. One whole is broken into smaller pieces. So there's more of them, but they're tinier, okay? So when we say a number, depending on what is on the bottom is how you're going to write it as a decimal. Okay, so the fraction 6/10 means 6 out of 10 pieces. Okay, 6 divided by 10. Okay, so you say 6/10 when you're reading this fraction. Okay, so you're going to write it, see the decimal point and the tenths place, you're going to write it as 0.6, and you can say 6/10. Okay? The numerator is going to stay the same, 6. 6/100ths, 6/100ths. Okay? So you're going to write that as 0.06. Now, why is there a 0 there? It's because it's saving that place. There are no tenths. There are 6/100ths. Okay? So whenever you're writing a fraction, or whenever you're reading a decimal, you're going to say the name of the last decimal place. Okay, so that's why I said this was read 325 10,000ths, because I'm going to read the last decimal place. Okay, I'm going to say the last decimal place. You'll read this like a regular number and then say the last decimal place. Okay, so 6/100ths, 6/100ths, because it's in the hundredths decimal place. Okay, look at this. Numerator stays the same, but the bottom is different. 6/1000ths, 6 out of 1,000. 6 divided by 1,000, 6/1000ths. I'm going to read this 6/1000ths because it's in the thousands place. Look at these zeros are saving the places because there are no tenths, there are no hundredths, there are only thousands. So this is 6/1000ths. And then this last one, 6/10,000ths. 6 over 10,000, 6 divided by 10,000 into 10,000 pieces, 6/1000ths. And look, 6/1000ths. There are no tenths, no hundredths, no thousands, 6/10,000ths. Okay, I'll also show you another trick. Look at how many zeros there are in this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Look how many places there are in the decimal. 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's going to be the same number of places in the decimal as there are zeros in the fraction. Okay? All right, so let's look at page 426. And it says your vocabulary word is a benchmark fractions. Remember we said a benchmark is something solid, like a bench that you can count on, that's very easy for you to remember. Okay, it's like quarters, halves, thirds. Those are benchmark fractions. Okay, so tenths, hundredths, thousandths, 10,000ths, those are also benchmark fractions because they're easy to remember and they're all multiples of 10. All right, so the question is, how can you write a fraction as a decimal? About 6/10ths of the world's population live in Asia, and 13/100ths live in Africa. Fractions with denominators like 10 or 100 can easily be written as decimals. Sometimes the word name for a fraction and place value are helpful because they're the same. Okay? All right, so look at the box. Look at the boxes next to there. You have 2 whole boxes. Okay, the boxes are the same shape, the same size, but they're divided into different amount of pieces. Okay, so you have the first box that is divided into 10 pieces. Okay, they're the same sizes. right? So the box is divided into 10 pieces. So you have 6 out of the 10 pieces colored in. All right, so 6/10 of the pieces are colored in. Okay, so 6/10. You can either write it 6/10 as a fraction, or you can write 0.6. Okay, do you notice that there's a 0 in front of the decimal point? Okay, you can either write 0.6, it's just showing that there's no holes, okay? 0.6, or you could just write 0.6, all right? Now look at the next box, same size as the first box, but it's divided into 100 pieces, and 13 of those 100 pieces are filled in. So 13/100ths, okay? You create 13 out of 100, or 13/100ths as a fraction, or you could write 0.13, 0.13. So you read that as 13/100ths because the last number in the decimal is in the hundredths place. Okay, so you're going to read it 13/100ths. But look at the boxes filled in. Look at the boxes filled in. Even though there's 6 of these and 13 of these, which one is a bigger amount, or a bigger decimal, or bigger fraction? 6/10, because 6 out of 10 pieces are filled in. 13 out of 100 pieces are filled in. So there's only 1, 10, and 3/100ths. So look at a 10 and 3/100ths, and that's written as 1.13. There's a 1 in the tenths place, see, 1/10, and then 3 in the hundredths place. It'll make you feel like you have a lisp when you talk about decimals and fractions. Okay, so there's 3 in the hundredths place. All right. Okay. So if you look in example A, it says write 17/1000 as a decimal, or 17/1000ths. Okay, so if you're going to write 17/1000ths, you're going to have the 7 in the thousandths place, and then the 1 in the hundredths place. So what do you put in the tenths place? A 0, because it's just saving the place. Okay, so 17/1000ths equals 0.017. Okay, all right, so for homework tonight, you're going to work on 428, practice odd. Okay, there's 25 of them, okay, and there's 25 of them, and you're going to do odd, so 9, 11, 13, 15, 17, 19, 21, etc. Okay, so practice includes B, so A and B. Okay, you're going to do A and B odd. All right, so for tomorrow, you're going to do page 431, practice odd, okay, which is fractions and decimals on a number line. Okay, so we've done number lines very often this year, and a number line for fractions or decimals, there's going to be 0 right in the middle of it, okay? Anything, so if you have a number line, let's look at it right here. If you have a number line, 0 is going to be in the middle of it when you're talking about fractions or decimals, because anything anything to anything to the left of the 0 is going to be under a whole number. Anything to the right of the 0 is going to be more than 0, so a whole number. Okay, so if you're writing a fraction or a decimal on a number line, it's going to be under 0 because it's part of a whole number. So let's look at learn. It says, how can you locate fractions and decimals on the same number line? It says Rachel skated 7/8 of a mile. Ayla skated 1.4 miles, which would be 1 4/10 miles. And Tom skated 1 1/4 miles. Who skated the farthest? Well, example A says show 7/8, 1 4/10, and 1 1/4 on the same number line. So the first step would be to write each fraction or mixed number as a decimal. So we got to figure out how to do that. Okay, so don't forget when we talked about fractions, we said that that line is a division sign. Okay, so if you have 7/8, if you have 7/8, that's really read as 7 divided by 8. So let's do it. All right, well, as soon as I look at it, I see I have a problem. I can't put 8 into 7. It's too big. So I need to write a decimal point next to the 7 before I divide. So make sure you write it in the dividend and also in the quotient, okay? So now I'm going to put some zeros there. So how many times does 8 go into 70? How many times does 8 go into 70? It goes in 8 times. 8 times 8 is 64. How many times does 8 go into 60? 7. 7 times 8 is 56. Okay. How many times does 8 go into 40? 5. Okay. So this one stops at 5 because there's not going to be anything left. Okay, some decimals can go on forever. Okay, so 7/8 as a decimal is 0.875. Okay, so you have 7/8 and then you have 1.25. Okay, because 1/4, remember, it can be divided. So you do 4, okay? And so what's 100 divided by 4? 25. You can also look at that with fractions, with money, okay? 1/4 is also 0.25, okay? And then 1.4, well, you know that 0.4 is 4/10. Okay, so on a number line, if you look at step 2, on a number line, you're going to place the numbers on the number line. Look at 0 and look at 1. Okay, so 1, I was wrong when I said this. I meant 1, not 0 in the middle. I'm so sorry. Okay, because it's part of 1, not part of 0. How rude of me. Okay, it's early. All right, so if you look at the number line under 1, you have, okay, 7/8 and 0.875 are the same number. okay? And then above the number 1, you have 1 and 2, 1.25, which is 1 and 25 hundredths, okay? And 1 and 1/4 is the same, okay? And then 1.4 is 1 and 4/10, okay? So you can see where they fall on the number line, okay? So they are, when you have a mixed number like 1 and 1/4, it is less than 2, but more than 1, okay? So you are going to, and we'll talk about that a little bit more on Zoom, okay? But you are going to do page 431, practice, A, B, and mixed, review and test prep, odd, and I will see you in a few minutes. Bye.